Hello, and welcome to online training for ISO and agents. Today's topic of conversation is how to sell merchant services with Clover to grocery stores. Let's get started. The agenda is going to include grocery merchant demographics. This is going to be the biggest topic or section of the conversation for today. I'm going to dive much deeper into the topic of who these grocery merchants are, what does this vertical represent quantity-wise, and I'm going to show you different pockets of opportunity where Clover would be a perfect fit. About 400,000 merchants within this grocery merchant demographic would be a good fit. Let me demonstrate this. The first pocket of grocery stores I want to call out are the obvious choice is the convenience stores. And there are 160,000 convenience stores in the US, and according to my research, 63% of them are single store operators. Now, that represents 100,000 merchants opportunity that would be a good fit for Clover. Let's move on. Another good opportunity for Clover would be an independent grocery store. Independent as opposed to enterprise, right? So if you're talking about a merchant or a retailer that's a traditional grocery store that has 20, 30, 40,000 items in their store, Clover is not a good fit. An independent grocery store with a single store operator, or maybe up to 10 stores operator, where franchise is not involved, big corporations are not involved, and corporate does not drive down the policy onto its stores, Clover is a good opportunity. And so for independent grocery stores, we're calling out Clover as a good opportunity. So that's another 22,000 merchants in the United States. There is this very interesting vertical, which is called a combination grocery. And usually it's going to be a combination of general, like a drugstores, right? Or a dollar stores or general stores with food, right? So drugstore with food, dollar store with food, or general store with food. For the most part, it's a pretty enterprise driven industry. It's kind of cornered by the big guys. I would say that maybe 10 to 12,000 merchants within the United States in that particular vertical would be a good opportunity or a good fit for Clover. Not a big piece of the pie, but here it is, 12,000. Moving on. This right here was a huge discovery for me as well. When I was doing this research, I was surprised. I did not realize how big of a market I didn't know about diving into the research for this webinar. Let me break this down for you. It turns out that there is about 2 million farmers in the United States, and you can Google all of these numbers that I'm presenting you. There's nothing controversial about what I'm talking about. However, it turns out that 10% of these 2 million farmers are going direct to consumer to sell their products and not always utilizing farmer markets, because a farmer market is an organized event with some outsiders, where all the farmers will come in and there's going to be a bunch of farmers involved, and it's a scheduled on a day of, event when there's a farmer's market in your city, for example. What we're talking about here is a little bit different, and I'm going to do you the courtesy and just let you read this description here, but ultimately what we're talking about is the stands on the side of the road, or the signs that welcome people into the farm. And wow, that number is big. Look at this, it's 180,000 thousand merchants or farmers that are essentially merchants, because they're selling produce directly to consumers regardless of how they're getting the attention of these consumers. That's a significant number, and to me this was a pretty surprising number. I didn't know about this, to be perfectly honest. And here are your farmer markets, right? So in the United States, there's about 9,000 of them. This is why I'm calling out, this section here, 180,000 farmers selling directly to consumers one way or another. They need a way to transact. Farmer markets is another 9,000. 100% of the farmer market is a small business operators. So Clover is a perfect fit for that. Here is another one, specialty food stores, and this will include bakeries, fruits and vegetables, meat, poultry products, and seafood, right? So I did not include ethnic food stores because that could be quantified separate, and that's going to be my next slide. But 47,000 specialty food stores, there's just 1% of big players. Bristol Farms is a pretty good example of a specialty food store. But for the most part, 45,000 merchants, I would say, of the 47,000 marketplace would be a small business that would be a pretty good fit for Clover. The next is ethnic food stores. 15,000 merchants in the United States, pretty good number. So here you go. That basically covers about 400, maybe 10,000 under 400,000 merchants. That would be a perfect fit for Clover. Now, what are the needs that are driven by regulation and the government? Well, so you have the EBT and SNAP, and these things are regulated by FNS and USDA. Food Bucks and Double Up program is the one that's USDA, and age verification, lottery, ability to sell and redeem, fees and taxes, and scale certification. This right here is a list. Let me kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. EBT is a payment type that is issued, regulated, managed, and mandated by the government, right? So this is a government payment rails that is utilized to help a certain sector of consumers and a certain sector of merchants. What do I mean by that? So there could be a consumer out there who is in need of financial assistance from the government. That consumer receives a card that would be an EBT card. It's a plastic, credit card, and the government would put some funds into that card, and then the consumer is able to utilize these funds to buy groceries, produce, food-related items, right? Things that they're not allowed to buy for, it would be alcohol, tobacco, lottery. That's a good example of things that cannot be bought with that payment type. Okay. Food Bucks and Double Up program is a little bit more involved. It's a program that basically helps that consumer get twice as much produce. It helps the retailer to give more discounts to their customers with the CBT and participate in that program, and therefore bring in more foot traffic. And because the qualified produce has to be local, it also helps the farmers, right? So it's an all-around program that helps basically everybody on that supply chain, and nationwide it's called Food Bucks on Double Up. From the perspective of the point of sale, you just need to know that this needs to be handled, right? So you have to be able to provide, to recognize that, a consumer is coming in and qualifies for Food Bucks or Double Up program, and necessary action needs to be taken, whether it's a coupon or a discount or a rebate, what have you. Age verification is probably straightforward, right? So there is a federal government that mandates that customers that buy alcohol, tobacco, lottery be age verified, right? So pretty simple stuff there. Lottery. So if a grocery store also is a convenience store, also sells and redeems lottery, well, then you need to be able to keep track of what you're redeeming, right? At the very least, as a merchant, that would be your, uh, the need for you to handle. Fees and taxes. Everybody's heard about the fees, and fees are pretty major right now because retailers are hurting and they're looking for ways to pass on fees to customers. And as they are coming up with more and more ways of issuing fees, whatever those fees may be, concert night fee, uh, waiter service fee, whatever travel fee, whatever the fee merchants invent, certain states or cities or counties are mandating that those fees be taxed or specifically not be taxed. So there's regulation involved with fees. And then if a merchant, well, not if, but a grocery store merchant also has to have scale, right? That scale, first of all, needs to be NTEP certified, and then the city needs to come in and evaluate it and make sure that it's properly calibrated and put their seal of approval, for a year or so. And so these are the needs that are driven by regulation and the government. And let me kind of just right away point out that I'm not saying all the needs for all the grocery stores. We obviously are focusing only on the Clover point of sale. And from that perspective, when you're trying to push, let's say you're pushing a Clover into a grocery store, whatever the vertical it may be, you have to be mindful of these things in the sense that a merchant is dealing with EBT items and also non-EBT items. And keeping them separate is extremely important to that merchant because these government entities say so. Age verifying and being able to prove that you have age verified is also extremely important to that merchant. And if you, as an agent, are not covering these bases to a merchant, you're not telling them, oh, we have a solution for this, we have a solution for that, we know that you need to deal with this and this, or at least you're not talking these pain points to a merchant, you're not going to close a deal because solution selling requires that you know what you're talking about. So this is what you talk about. And these are the things that are driven by the government. This right here are the needs that are driven by the vendors and the manufacturers, right? So we're kind of compounding them to the side. We have efforts that are driven by the manufacturers and vendors from just the sales and marketing perspective, right? So that's very easy to imagine. A grocery store would have a ton of items, a ton of different names and brands of items. And even if it's an unbranded item, such as milk, right? There are associations out there that would utilize paper, digitals, and TV, radio, everything out there to promote milk, right? Push the demand up through these channels. Manufacturers do the same thing, right? So they issue coupons on whatever that prints. They issue coupons on whatever that's digital. They go into branded deals with whoever wants to go in or whoever makes sense strategically and otherwise for them. And they have promotions all the time to satisfy whatever the needs they have, the vendors. So the manufacturers, vendors, right? And lastly, more and more you will start realizing that manufacturers are now looking for ways to connect with consumers directly. So loyalty programs from major manufacturers is not that unheard of, right? Major tobacco manufacturers have their own loyalty programs. Major soda providers, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, have their own loyalty programs. Major snack providers, Mars, Snickers, what have you, have their own loyalty programs. This is kind of what I'm talking about here. And if you are a retailer who can accept manufacturer-funded coupon that comes from the paper or digital form, you're at the advantage as a retailer because you can tell people, yeah, come with your coupons from your manufacturers to us. We'll accept those coupons. That's foot traffic to your store. Same thing with the discounts. If you are, let's say, working with Coca-Cola as an example I'd like to use, although not a very good food, but is present in every grocery store. Wouldn't you agree? So Coca-Cola is one of the manufacturers that, for the most part, are self-managed. So you, as a small store, don't necessarily buy products from Coca-Cola. Rather, you give them shelf space, and somebody from Coca-Cola manages that shelf space and everything that's entailed with it. Well, one of the things that's entailed with it is Coca-Cola coming in and saying, we're running this promotion. When people buy 2 bottles, they get, a special deal. From the Clover point of sale perspective, are you able to run those 2 for deals or 3 for deals or whatever this condition of the deal the manufacturer is pushing? Can the point of sale handle it? Right. So that's kind of the manufacturer and vendor sales marketing needs that are pushed onto the retailer, because retailer wants to be able to accept coupons, wants to be able to issue discounts, and that goes for and participate in other promotions, right? And loyalty that manufacturer initiates or is out there promoting. The next one is the store themselves, right? So we talked about how store has to deal with the government throws at them. Store has to chooses to participate, for the things that the manufacturers and vendors out there doing, because this right here is just regulation. Government is just regulation and requirements. Manufacturers and vendors are doing sales and marketing efforts. So if you as a merchant are choosing to participate because you see the benefit, because you see how this brings more people to your store, or gives you more sales otherwise. And so for the most part, you want to participate in these special deals and special promotions that the manufacturers are pushing. But then there's stuff that the stores just do on their own, right? So if we're talking about grocery retailers, there's just things that are driven by the perishable nature of the product, right? So things tend to go bad in the grocery stores. So you'll have date-driven discounts, right? Because you need to move the merchandise, for example. You have the need for shelf space. There's more stuff than you want to put on your shelf than you have the room for. So that would be another reason to initiate quantity-based discounts for you as a merchant, right? To either get rid of the perishable items or free up shelf space. You obviously are thinking about customer retention program, which is why you as a merchant will want to initiate loyalty programs or other ways of interacting with your consumers to get more of the good customers into the store, right? Checkout is a pretty big factor because there are things that just need to be accommodated for. Because think of a checkout experience like at the factory, you have a process. Well, checkout is one of those little processes that's extremely important. And so what are we talking about, for at the checkout? So at the checkout is the opportunity to handle the fees and the prices that can be managed. And then we have the scale and POS integration next to POS integration. So we're talking about the grocery store. A checkout could be an item that's sell by weight, or it could just be an item that you scan, right? So imagine you're at the grocery store. If something has a barcode, well, that's great. You just scan it. If something doesn't have a barcode, That means you look that item up and then you put it on a scale. Same thing for anything, including Clover. So how do you do that? Right, so scale next to POS integration. Unit tier management. This is, again, a little bit of requirement. So if you don't do this, this falls onto the requirements. But for the most part, retailers, feel that even if nobody's watching, they're going to do this themselves, which is don't charge the customer for containers, right? So find a way to remove the weight of the container from the things that you're weighing, because otherwise people are paying for containers, for the weight of containers. And then you have the scale by the prep station integration. So if you're thinking about a grocery store, there are going to be sections in the store that are not checkout, but a prep station, right? So there could be like a deli session, there could be a meat cutting session, there could be a cheese cutting session where customers can come in, ask for certain things to be cut, prepped, made into a dish or whatever, and then weighed, packaged, labeled, and given to them to go to checkout. So you can think of your own experience as you walk into a bigger enterprise level store. Every one of those stores would have a butcher towards the end of the store where you could, ask for certain pieces of steak to be cut, weighed, and they'll just weigh it, package it, and print a little label and give you the package with that label. So when you go back to checkout, you simply scan that barcode, right? So again, not that a merchant only has these issues that I've listed. This is a very neatly put together list of needs or requirements if you're dealing with a grocery store that you should be aware of as a sales agent out there. But obviously, grocery stores in general think about more than just these things. But as far as the Clover point of sale is concerned, this is your list right here. Okay, now let's talk about solutions and how everything is handled. So we have the Inventory Plus Plus app that handles EBT, Snap, and Split. We also utilize that same app to handle the food box and the double up program. Okay. We have age verification technology utilized by the Customer Plus Plus app. That same app is utilized to work with manufacturer coupons, work with manufacturer loyalty program, or just in general accept any coupon out there. That same app could also be expanded into, gathering and exporting customer data, in-store loyalty program. So this right here would be the loyalty program that a manufacturer, any one of the manufacturer out there is driving. And this right here is a loyalty program that the store themselves initiate, right? So think about it this way. They participate in this program, they run and own this one, okay? And then there is an option to have a consumer loyalty app, right? So you can have like a simple loyalty program where it's like a punch card solution, right? So come in 10 times and we'll give you something, right? So people come in and every time you come in, you tell them how many times they've come in, let's say on a receipt. Okay, so that's a rudimentary sort of approach. And then you can have a more involved approach where a consumer has their own loyalty app. It shows them how many times they've come in, what they've bought, what kind of coupons they have, or whatever, the benefits, the discounts, all the stuff that the store lists, it shows up on that loyalty app for consumer, right? Lottery payouts, we put that into the compliance because we also have bottle returns. That app is called Negative Tender app, and that same app could be utilized also for the vendor payouts or the coupon redemption or for owner draw or for any other payout reason. Okay, as we're talking about fees or taxes, we have ability to tax any surcharge, or we can charge state recycle value or any other fee that the government requires. There could be any fee for any reason that a merchant can run using this app here. Mix or Match app is the app that helps configure manufacturer discounts like Coke or Monsters, those deals. Also, it is a app that works with sell by weight items. So it could be used to discount perishable items based on a schedule. It could be used to discount items to clear shelves, or it could also be utilized to issue discounts to employees and customers or senior citizens, for instance, right? Lastly, we're talking about unit tear management for compliance reasons, if we want to. We're talking about scanning meat and poultry from packagers, right? So there could be a packaging somewhere that brings us products that are already have these barcodes in them, or we could use label printing scale at the prep station, deli, meat market, cheese, and use any custom barcode parsing. So all of that is handled with barcode parser. Now, a lot of functionality. However, you have to consider the fact that not all merchants will need all of these things. But if they do, that's wonderful. And because you have listened or witnessed this particular training, you are privy to the special pricing, because what you see here is not actually publicly available. So this right here is the a la carte pricing for the items that I've described. Let me kind of just go again from the price point of view. For example, EBT and Snap Split cost $9.99. That's all you need to pay to get this functionality. If we're talking about Food Bugs Double Up functionality, then $19.99 is the price, which includes all of this, right? If all you need is just age verification, then $9.99 is enough, and that would also include the ability to accept manufacturer coupons, right, for $10 a month. If you're talking about having your own in-store loyalty program, and then it would be $19.99, right? If you're talking about having your in-store loyalty program with consumer loyalty app, then we're talking $39.99. So you can see how it's not all of these, it's a progression, right? So it could be either the $9, the $19, or the $39, but it's not all three, essentially, is what I'm trying to say here. Negative Tender app is just $6.15 a month, and that's it, and it includes the functionality that's needed. Same thing for these two, right? So advanced fees is $10.15, Mix or Match is $10.15, and then you have the barcode parser that can either be $9.99, $12.99, or $19.99. And the $10 a month just gets you like a standard barcode scanning. That's for the most part what you would want. The $12.99 provides custom barcode parsing. So if you're getting some barcodes that are not standard, the custom will handle it. And the unit tear management gets you into the $19 category. So that's how a la carte pricing works. And if you were to get everything at the most highest price, you'd end up at over $100, I think, eventually, which is why we have these things here. So what I'm saying is, if you found this recording, or if you were present today on this webinar, you can ask for this pricing. Just reach out at info@csiworks.net and say that you've seen this pricing at this webinar, and we will honor it. And the pricing is such that for $39.99, we will provide you with this functionality, right? So EBT and the food box, age verification, we'll give you the negative tender to handle the payouts, we'll give you the advanced fees to handle the taxes and surcharges and the recycle values, and we'll also give you the barcode parser with unit tear management, right? So if you calculated it, it would be way more than $39.99. Now, $59.99, basically, you still have this one. But now you would be able to accept all the manufacturer coupons from anybody, and also accept loyalty program from anybody. You get the idea, right? So how this works. And for $79.99, everything. Now, to get this pricing, simply reach out at info@csiworks.net and just mention that you've seen it on this particular webinar or training session. Now, let me move on. In summary, there are 392 perfectly good grocery stores would be a good fit to run Clover Merchant in the United States. I've shown you the government regulation driven by the city, state, federal. I've shown you the vendor manufacturer's needs and the retailer's focus as well. And I've shown you how CSI Works pricing and solutions work. Now, for additional resources, feel free to use this information here. For sales, you can reach me at 619-246-8236. For support, 760-542-2178. Now, for written FAQs, you're welcome to visit csi.works. That would be the domain. For video content, you're welcome to visit pointofinteraction.net. Okay, ISO training material such as this one can be accessed at isotalk.net, and all of the apps by CSI Works and Clover can be accessed at cloverapps.net. Thank you.